I have to say I'm kind of overwhelmed by things that Betty said. And I'd be careful not to repeat some of what she said, and she actually reminded me of some things I had forgotten about. But I have to say I'm really so honored and touched to get this award. My legal career was a little unconventional. I started at NYU Law School at the age of 41, having come a little late to the realization that law was the right place for me, but once I got here I realized I finally made the right decision. And I really had a ball here. A lot of people don't like law school. I loved it. I loved the intensity of the learning and the brilliance of the teaching and the analytical rigor of the field, which I really cherish. I had worked in politics and social work before that, but NYU generously helped me out and gave me a Tilden Fellowship, which enabled me to then move on to a public interest career. And that's where I've been ever since, as Betty said. I've only had 4 jobs since I graduated 30 years ago, each in a different sector of public interest. I wanted to use the law as a tool for social reform, for tikkun olam, as the Hebrew saying goes, healing the world, doing the best we can, even in bad circumstances. And I therefore chose different jobs even without realizing the progression that would enable me to do that. First, as Betty mentioned, as law clerk to Judge Feinberg, who was quite extraordinary, and watching him deal with very complicated cases, which judges do. But most important, I think, he was a role model for me because of his legal acumen, his broad knowledge of the law, of course, and his deep commitment to the proper administration of justice, and finally, his amazing ability to be courteous, respectful, and fair to even the most irritating and wrong-headed litigants, and even colleagues and law clerks. Next, as Assistant Attorney General in New York under Robert Abrams, I had the privilege of handling cases where government was on the side of the angels. I brought a variety of lawsuits. I won a lot of them, amazingly, with the power of the state behind me, and justice. I challenged violations of health and safety laws, the denial of food stamps to homeless families, the abuse of Medicaid by unscrupulous providers, attempts by large corporations to defraud the state of millions of dollars, and most poignantly and memorably, the operation of a baby selling business by a rabbi preying, with an E, on vulnerable childless couples. At the AG's office, I was trained by tough, smart, diligent public interest lawyers who wanted to be on the right side of justice. Bob Abrams, to his credit, set that tone. Then, as General Counsel to Public Advocate Mark Green, well, we were on the losing side of the 2001 mayoral race, but we were on the right side for the 8 years before that of the law. We advocated for strong campaign finance laws, which I fear are now on their way out, against tobacco makers that wooed teens, against city agencies that failed to protect endangered children, against retailers that discriminated against women in pricing, and even against the mayor when he abused the powers of his office. One of our lasting legacies was a case called Green v. Safer, which confirmed the right of the public advocate to have access to city records to investigate alleged wrongdoing by city officials. The other thing we did was pass a law to prohibit discrimination in employment against domestic violence victims, which is what led me easily to my most recent job at Sanctuary for Families, which Betty has talked about. Sanctuary, I just have to give a little plug. I have some of my colleagues here with 150 staff, 25 lawyers, hundreds of pro bono counsel who work with them, skilled social workers, shelter staff, job trainers, and development and finance wizards who keep the place afloat. Sanctuary represents clients in immigration, orders of protection, divorce, custody, and visitation, offers clients safety, heals them psychologically, their psychological wounds, and teaches them marketable skills. I am most proud of the fact that while providing those services, we successfully advocated, again as Betty mentioned, for law reforms at the federal, state, and city levels that improve protections for victims by properly punishing violence and abuse and the buying and selling of women's bodies. So, my big thanks, I can't thank Betty enough, one of my role models and dear friends. I have to thank my husband, who NYU Law class of '61, who was, what can I say, my role model, my mentor, my supporter, who kept me going while I took care of the kids while I studied, like the grind I had to be to start school again at that age. And of course to my family and friends, who, particularly my friends and family who are here today, who I so much appreciate. And then, of course, to NYU, and I'm so happy to hear from Dean Morrison that he is continuing this commitment to students working in government, that government is public service, and in the not-for-profit world. And again, thanking NYU for this wonderful award.